Can the Lions move up and be a top 10 defense this year? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, here we go, everybody. It's another episode of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Derry with you on a Wednesday, June 19th and a Thursday, June 20th. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. The day we celebrate the end of slavery in this country, going back to the 1860s. So a day to celebrate for sure. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. That includes for those of you that subscribe and watch each and every day on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Thank you for doing so and checking us out, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us. Tell your friends about us. We are here every day talking Detroit Lions football. Locked On Lions today, brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. You can follow me on Twitter at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions as well. The Matt Derry Facebook fan page also there for you. And new segment that we have now attempted and tried and utilized yesterday. We'll do another one tomorrow. Call of the day from our friends at SpeakPipe. So if you go to speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page, that's SpeakPipe.com/Derry, my last name, DERY podcast page. Leave a voicemail on there and we'll play your message if it's really good. We'll play the best one of the day. Yesterday, our buddy Ty Turner, we played his. Ty actually sent another message of thank you. We've gotten some other installments and submissions. Thank you. Keep it clean, no personal attacks, and just keep it positive as much as you can. I appreciate it. We'll play the best call that we got get in the next 24 hours and ones that we got also from yesterday. We thank you for chiming in on SpeakPipe. Thank you for doing that. On the show today, we got to talk about the Lions defense a little bit. Was on the radio in Cleveland this morning, and we were talking about the Browns defense and how they went from number 14 to number 1. Can the Lions jump and get into the top 10 this year as a defense? We'll get into that coming up momentarily as well. A writer from ESPN graded the Lions offseason and gave it a C and ripped the Jared Goff contract. I don't understand it. Makes no sense. We'll discuss that coming up momentarily. We mentioned SpeakPipe already, and also a Lions versus Pistons discussion toward the end of the show today, because Detroit made a pretty bold move today. Not that it's that big of a surprise, because I didn't sense that this coach ever wanted to be there, but they fired Monty Williams today, which is shades of the old Lions. All of that coming up today right here on Locked On Lions. Again, thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. All right. So like I said, I fill in on 92.3 The Fan from time to time in Cleveland, the sports radio station there. I've been doing that for 8 years. Of course, that's my hometown, and I was doing the morning show today. And we got into a discussion about Jim Schwartz and the Browns defense. We talked to Max Chadwick, our buddy from PFF, and the Browns last year went from, in 2022, the 14th best defense in the league based on yards per game given up, to number 1 in the NFL last year. The Browns with Myles Garrett and JOK and Greg Newsome and all those guys that the Browns have on that defense. Darius Smith, Denzel Ward. The Browns gave up 270.2 yards per game. The Lions last year moved from 32nd in the league, so dead last 2 years ago, despite a 9-8 record, to 19th in the league in yards allowed, giving up 336.1. So to make the jump, and for this season in year 4, under Dan Campbell, under Aaron Glenn as the defensive coordinator, future head coach Aaron Glenn, can the Lions get into the top 10? Can they do it? Since Campbell's taken over, the Lions have been 29th in the league, 2021, 32nd in the league, 2022, and 19th in the league last year in 2023. The biggest issue, the biggest issue that the Lions had last year was their pass defense. If you recall last year, against the run, the Lions were number 2 in the league, second best in all the league. giving up less than 100 yards per game on the ground. The run defense was good. Brian Branch coming up from the secondary to make plays. Aleem McNeil plugging things in the middle. Hutchinson is a very good run defender. The linebackers really were good last year and swarming. The problem that the Lions had last year was that their pass defense was 27th in the league. All right, it was bad. 6th worst in the NFL. So now, as we go into 2024, Lions, by the way, gave up, let me just give you the number here, 247.4 yards per game through the air. They gave up over 4,200 yards passing last year, whereas the Cleveland Browns gave up 2,800. Browns allowed 164 yards per game against the pass. The Lions gave up 247, just to use it as a comparison. How can our Lions, how can this team get into the top 10? Number one, Brad Holmes has addressed the biggest issue here. We've talked about this. The pass defense for a lot of the season last year sucked. The pass rush was not good enough. Outside of Aiden Hutchinson getting some pressures, outside of blitzing safeties like Melifonwu, occasionally Anzalone from his linebacker position, the Lions were not getting home enough. John Kaminsky regressed last year when it came to rushing the passer. James Houston, who had 8.5 sacks in a shortened campaign 2 years ago, last year was injured for most of the season. The Lions just could not get the Okwara brothers, Charles Harris, any of those guys to get any kind of push, any kind of vaulting around the end to get to the quarterback. And it showed toward the end of last season when Dak Prescott hit CeeDee Lamb numerous times, when Nick Mullins was throwing for 4 bills and Justin Jefferson was having 150 yards of receiving. In the playoff games, Mike Evans torched the Lions. Puka Nacua torched the Lions. Then in the finale, Ayuk with that catch. And the Lions' pass defense was not good enough. Part of it was that Aiden Hutchinson seemed to be the only one getting to the quarterback. Not acceptable. And the other part was the cornerbacks were Cam Sutton and Kindle Vildor at the end of the year. Now the Lions have added Carlton Davis, Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw, Emmanuel Mosley hopefully will be back and healthy. Amik Robertson. They've got more talent. They made big time additions. And the more I think about it, Brad Holmes, my guess is from February to April, was staring at that 27. He was staring at that number. We were 27th in the league against the pass, and that cannot happen. Not in a passing league. What did Ken Holland once tell me? It's a men's league. It's a passing league. So you look at it and you go, all right, who do the Lions have to leapfrog to get into the top 10? Well, the Browns pretty much bring back everybody and bring back defensive coordinator Jimmy Handshake Schwartz. The Chiefs were 2, the Jets 3, Carolina 4, Dallas 5. Dallas' defense is pretty damn good. Baltimore 6. Ravens should regress a little bit without Patrick Queen. New England 7. I'm not seeing that again. Niners 8. Good defense there. We know that. Buffalo 9. Miami 10. Atlanta, Chicago, New Orleans, Houston, the Raiders, the Vikings, the Packers, and the Titans all also finished ahead of the Lions. Now, again, Cleveland went from 14 to 1 in the span of a year. Can the Lions go from 19 to 10? I think it's possible. They're going to need a healthy Marcus Davenport, who, when healthy in New Orleans and Minnesota, was able to generate some pressures. Aiden Hutchinson's going to need some help. And I think the addition of DJ Reader is not just some plugger in the middle against the run. He can push the pocket back. He can force a guard to have to slide to utilize to have to slow him down to the point where a tackle is getting one-on-one play against Aiden Hutchinson, which hopefully leaves Hutchinson open to do more damage. The Lions have got to find a way to get to the quarterback. What if the CFL product, Matthew Betts, somehow is a playmaker that the Lions picked up? what if Mekhi Wingo from LSU turns out to be a steal? What if we see an in shape Broderick Martin, Levi Onwuzurike in a contract year, able to make some plays and get into the backfield here? That will help the pass defense immensely. But if the pass rush is about the same, this secondary is so much better. It is better. We talked about it last week. Melifonwu went from a lock as a starter at the end of last season to, I'm not sure if he's going to be on the field, because if you've got Arnold playing well and Robertson and Davis, and you need Branch on the field at a safety spot, and you got Kirby Joseph, if he could be the odd man out, but he had a really good second half last year. I think this can be done. I do. Problem is, schedule is murder. They're going to be facing some really good offenses. Really good offenses. They had trouble with Matthew Stafford and Baker Mayfield at the end of last season in the playoffs in terms of yards given up. And those are the first two opponents this year. But I think it can be done. I think Aaron Glenn has done a good job. I think he's improved. He went from a lot of us making fun of him and saying he's got to go to, oh my goodness, we've seen progress. But the pass defense has to get better. So I think it can be done, but it's not going to be easy. That's for sure, right? All right, coming up next, an ESPN writer, I don't really know. He graded the Lions offseason a C. A lot of people were saying A minus, B plus. I have not seen a C until today. We'll get to that coming up next, right here on Locked On Lions. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Want to get Tiger tickets for this summer? They just got swept by the Braves. Maybe prices are coming down. Well, the best place to find out where you can sit and what the price is and getting a good deal is on the Gametime app. All right, seriously. Lion tickets, Rams, Bucks, Seahawks, Titans, Jags, Packers, Bears, Bills, and at the end of the season this year, Minnesota, all coming to town. That Sunday night game against the Rams is going to be a hot ticket. You want to be there Sunday night, September 8th. Get your tickets now at Gametime. That view from your seat button is awesome in the app. You'll love it. Check it out. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, welcome back. Locked On Lions on a Wednesday edition. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Some of you might have seen that CBS Detroit has been doing news for the last year or so, year plus. They've got Sandra Ali on in the morning and others. And they've got a new sports anchor who anchors like the 4, 5, 6, and 11 o'clock sports. Her name is Rachel Hopmeyer. Rachel is going to join us tomorrow on the show, make her maiden voyage, her first appearance on Locked On Lions. We want to introduce her to the masses and get to know her a little bit better. Plus, wait till, and I'm not going to spoil it, wait till you find out who introduced Rachel to me on social media. You're not going to believe it. I'll give you a hint. One of the most hated men in Detroit. Rachel Hopmeyer from CBS Detroit going to join us tomorrow on the program. So check it out. We appreciate Rachel giving us some time, and we'll find out what she thinks of the Lions and meet her tomorrow right here on this very podcast. Don't forget, Jake Riepma did a Locked On postcast today at Locked On Detroit Sports. So go to YouTube, Locked On Detroit Sports, subscribe and check out all the postcasts. Jake Riepma, the host, is awesome. He's on after every Tigers game, and then when we get to Lions season, he'll be on after every Lions game, Pistons, Wings. So the postcast. So after today's Scooble got rocked. I can't believe that. Ramon Laureano even took him deep. Like, what planet am I on? Braves beat him up today. But check out the postcast with Jake. He right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. He does a great job with that. All right, read an article today at ESPN.com by a guy by the name of Seth Walder. I have no idea who he is, but he was giving out grades for the offseason. And the sixth lowest grade on his list were the Lions, which he graded the Detroit Lions offseason as a C. Atlanta, Minnesota, Dallas, the Raiders, and the Saints were beneath the Lions. New Orleans was dead last. Walter gave the Lions a C because he ripped the Jared Goff 4-year, $212 million extension. Quote, "It's not a move I can endorse at this price, and it has the potential to hamper the organization for years. Goff is a divisive talent, but I think most would agree he's not a top 10 quarterback, and that offensive coordinator Ben Johnson deserves a fair share of credit for Detroit's offensive success. If Johnson leaves for a head coaching job in the near future, how effective would Goff be? It's a fair question." What does that have to do with this offseason and a grade? If we're grading the offseason and he's giving it a C based on that, Jared Goff was going to come back this year regardless. You see my point? Like, I also see it is a fair question about the contract. It's also a fair question about what if Ben Johnson departs? What then happens to Jared Goff? Does he regress? Does he struggle without his security blanket and the genius in his brain and in his headset, in his helmet? But the bottom line is, going into 2024, Jared Goff was going to be the quarterback anyway. And damn it, I think he's a top 10 quarterback. Walter's saying most would agree he's not. Who's most? Yeah, Trevor Sikkema at PFF has him at 16. Chris Sims had him top 10 the other day. To just also grade an entire offseason based on that contract and giving that a C, when later on in the piece, Walter says he likes the signings of Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he also thinks the additions of Kevin Zeitler, DJ Rader, and Marcus Davenport were all smart. He added it was smart to aggressively fill their cornerback needs in the draft. Right, then why a C? Good grade of a C. If you like the draft, you like the free agent signings, and Goff was going to come back anyway. He added, quote, "Had the Lions let Goff play out his 2024 deal, roughly $27 million in cash, and then given him the non-exclusive franchise tag in 2025 and again in 2026 and again in 2027, that would be roughly 1-year deals of $27 million, or 2 at 69, or 3 at 120, or 4 at 193, based on over the cap's 2025 franchise tag projections and assuming a 20% raise." I'm not reading any more of this. End quote. Stop. Just stop. Jared Goff was 8th in completion percentage, or is 8th in completion percentage in the NFL since Thanksgiving 2021. 3rd in yards, 4th in yards attempted, 4th in touchdowns, 6th fewest interceptions, and his quarterback rating for the last 2 years has been 99.6 over the last year and a half, or I'm sorry, 2.5 years. Please stop. Or make it stop. If you don't like the Goff contract, you want to say the offseason was a B-. You can't. A C based off of one deal. But then he says you should just keep franchise tagging him every year to save yourself roughly $30 to $40 million. That's it. That's it. Jared Goff was going to get paid. Here's the other thing. Let's say you franchise tag Jared Goff. Let's say Jared Goff has another good year this year and the Lions decided, well, we're going to just franchise tag him like Seth says. What if Goff goes, I'm not coming in. I'm going to hold out. I'm going to make this ugly. I deserve to be paid. I have done everything for this organization. I've been in the community. My fiance's been in the community. All I've done is won, and this is the thanks I get. How do you think that would go over in the locker room? There would be a little bit of a cloud. It would be like SOL rearing its ugly head. Lions wouldn't pay Calvin. Lions wouldn't pay Barry. Now, I know those were post-retirement payments, but you know what I mean. Now they won't pay their quarterback. But that's what Seth Walder apparently wants from ESPN. I think it's preposterous. If he didn't like the draft, or he thinks Davenport sucks, or Reader's overrated, or he didn't like any other of the free agent signings, please have at it. Give it a C. But grading it based on one move and not liking Jared Goff, but then saying, well, you can still franchise tag him is stupid. The Lions are going to work on the cap. These good teams always figure it out. And the Lions, by the way, are a good team. They'll figure it out. They will. All right, we'll wrap it up coming up next. All right, folks, do not forget, tomorrow, Rachel Hotmeyer from CBS Detroit, speakpipe.com/dairy podcast page if you want to leave us a voicemail, and we'll play the best one tomorrow on our Call of the Day segment, which we're going to attempt to do every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Locked On Lions. You want to talk about stability. You want to talk about how for the last 3+ years, it's been Sheila Hamp, Rod Wood, Chris Spielman, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell. Assistant GM Ray Agnew has been there. Mike Disner has been there. Lions have lost a couple of people in the front office, but for the most part, the captains of the ship, male or female, did I mention Chris Spielman? Have all been there and have all led to chemistry, cohesion, the same voices, and wins from 3 to 9 to 14. 2 playoff wins last year plus 2. Okay. 12 plus 2 is 14. Down the street or up the street. Well, if we're talking Allen Park, down the street. If we're going from Ford Field to LCA, that's up the street. The Detroit Pistons today fired head coach Monty Williams, who still had on his contract remaining 5 years and $65 million. Now, if you watched any of the Pistons games, and I used to work for the Pistons, I'm rooting for them. I want them to do well. If you watched any of the games last year, you saw it in this guy's face. He had no interest in being there. I don't think. He looked disinterested. He looked like a guy thinking about his wife who's been battling cancer back in Arizona. He looked like a guy that needed a break after coaching in Phoenix, after being broomed out by the new owner, and needed some time away. And the Pistons made him an offer at first. He said no. I need some time away. Maybe you do a little TV. Just unplug. And they sweetened the pot, and they made him the highest paid coach in the league, gave him 6 years. And next thing you know, Monty is in Detroit. And it was a disaster. They won 14 games. They set the record for the longest losing streak in NBA history. And Monty Williams just didn't have it. He's a good man and a good coach, but he just did not have it. Well, Pistons have made changes now. Another new head of basketball is in. Troy Weaver is out. Trajan Langdon is in. And apparently Trajan sounds like wants his own furniture in his house, but they're saying that the owner, Tom Gores, made this move. I just want to compare it and tell you, Lion fans, how good you have it right now. And again, we can go back to 2004 when the Pistons were going to work, and it was Joe D and John Hammond and Larry Brown. And I know there was a lot of coaching changes, but you had 2 years of Rick Carlisle, which were really good. You had 2 years of Larry Brown, which were really good. And you had 3 years of Flip Saunders, which were pretty darn good too, making the conference finals bunch of times. They made the conference finals Rick's second year, both years with Larry, 3, and then all of Flip Saunders, 6 straight conference finals. But again, you had the same people at the top of the organization. You had Joe, John Hammond, Scott Perry, George David, guys like that. My point is, you see what the Pistons are doing and what a mess it is. And go back and see how important it is that the Lions keep people around. This Ben Johnson staying, Aaron Glenn staying, Hank Fraley staying, Antoine Randall staying. This is huge. These are really good coaches. These front office people, John Dorsey too, Ray Agnew, these guys are great. Look at the talent evaluators. and the cohesiveness, and just, you want to build something, you got to stay in there. You got to keep people around. If you're constantly changing the GM, constantly changing the coach, which now the Pistons, Cade Cunningham will be playing for what, his third coach in 4 years? What a mess. What a mess. So again, Lions, they're the gold standard in this town right now. Pistons have some young talent. We'll see how the new coach does. Red Wings are coming. You see it. But again, they haven't made the playoffs in way too long. If they start slow this year, that coach will go. Tigers, who knows what that is. I like some of their young pitchers are good, but they're not winning. The Lions are the gold standard. It's crazy to say. I think about that all the time. Like I saw the news today about Monty Williams, and I'm just like, Lions aren't messing around doing that stuff. Handing a coach the biggest contract in the league, in league history. Now, it's been bypassed by others, but still. And then firing him after one season after a disaster. This is what the Lions used to do. This was like when Rick Forzano was in charge or Rod Marinelli was hired. And Monty Williams is better than Rod Marinelli, but you get my point. Or when Marty Morningwig was supposed to leave for Cleveland and the Lions and Matt Millen kept him in the building so he wouldn't go. So they hired him. And we know how that turned out. Steve Mariucci got millions of dollars. And the Lions finally spent some money on a coach. Whee! And it was a disaster. That had some Monty Williams vibes to it. Not this new regime with the Lions, man. They're doing it right. They're doing it right. All right, thanks for tuning in to this, what is today? Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions. Back again tomorrow for a fresh episode. Leave a voicemail at speakpipe.com/dairy podcast page. We'll see you again tomorrow.